today to of the Warrington Grove. Kerry Hall is going to be talking. But just to set this in context, I just want to say this is part of a national event, national for the Northwest that we're running over this week. And we've had a series of mini events running through the week. We've already had trading standards presenting, environmental health. Fiona from Lancaster presented. We've had two colleagues from economic development teams from Bury and one from York talking about their projects. And we've also had Dave Watson from Warrington, who is the chair of the North West Strategic Regulation Network, presenting as well, and various other case studies on Monday about what other areas of Better Business for All or best practice and collaborative work has been going on under the programs of Better Business for All. So this is designed to be an introduction to Better Business for All, and also so that you can get to know some of the partners that you can collaborate with through Better Business for All program. So just a few housekeeping rules to let you know. Obviously, we ask that while the presentation is going on, if you can put yourself on mute and have your camera off. There is going to be a chat line running, and we'll take questions at the end. Depending on time, either one of my colleagues will read it out or will ask you to read it out, but please post the questions as you go. And we are recording this event because there are people who can unfortunately miss it, and so they would like to see it at a later date. So that's brilliant. Okay, so we hope you're happy with that. So without any further information from me, I think what we'll do is I'll move straight ahead to Kerry and ask Kerry to present on the Cheshire and Warrington Growth Hub. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kerry Hall. I'm from the Cheshire and Warrington Local Enterprise Partnership, who employ me, and particularly I work on the Growth Hub project. So a little bit of a background, really, because I was asked to give it. So my professional life started off many years ago, actually in local government. One of the authorities, now part of Cheshire East, and that was back in the 80s. Since then, I've done a mixture of public sector and private sector work. It's always been around economic development and regeneration, and I've stayed in that field, and my career has gone from working directly with businesses to developing strategy, and now very much with businesses and doing some of the strategy. So that's a little bit about me. And I joined the LEP in 2018, and this next bit of information will explain how that came about, really. So for anybody who, just a little bit of background, the Cheshire and Warrington Local Enterprise Partnership is a private sector-led organisation, and it's focused primarily on driving the economic growth of our sub-region. And some of you today may have been at our AGM, which was earlier today. If you were, hope you enjoyed it. So the LEP basically does this development work in partnership with our local government authorities, businesses, educational institutes, public, private sector and community organisations. We don't do it on our own. We couldn't do it on our own. With each LEP, there's an associated growth hub throughout England, and growth hubs are set up and operate very differently dependent on where you are. Cheshire and Warrington Growth Hub is a small growth hub compared to some of the others, but we're very hands-on and we've got a developing team. So in 2018, the LEP decided to set up its growth hub internally. Now, growth hubs had been around for a few more years prior to that, but the LEP during that time had contracted out, and it was delivered by a private sector organisation. So back in 2018, we became in-house, and that was the time that I was recruited in, particularly to work on this project. The LEP's continue to develop and grow, and more recently, you may have heard, if you're local, that Marketing Cheshire has joined the family, and we have a number of new projects which have gone live over the last couple of years as well. So it's forever developing and looking forward. Still small compared to some of the other regions. So Cheshire Warrington LEP's one of the early leaders in the local industrial strategy. And if you don't know what that is, I'll give you a little bit of context, and particularly with regard to the pandemic period more recently, and what this has meant for our economic development going forward, and how we're having to change some of those strategy documents. I'll give you some more detail. So the LEP is supporting its 3 local authority partners to produce its local industrial strategies as well. So in terms of the Growth Hub, if you've never heard what a Growth Hub is before, because we're here to help businesses primarily. So Growth Hubs recognise that some small businesses, particularly and medium and small and medium-sized enterprises, are happy to stay small and value part of our economy, obviously. However, some businesses have ambition and want to grow, and this is predominantly the work of the Growth Hub. Although we have made some other changes more recently because the economic environment. So we're here to help businesses expand into new markets, to grow, discover new opportunities. On the slide, it just gives you some context of the resources and facilities that we have available. For those businesses with growth potential, the Growth Hub provides access to a range of intensive support, and we provide access to knowledge and information around finance, export, trade advice, research, development, skills, innovation, technology adoption, anything that a business may have challenges with, we're here to help and support. We're slightly different than a lot of the other growth hubs. We only use our core funding. We don't match our funding with the RDF, so we work with businesses of all sizes in all sectors. There's no limitations on who we will work with. We're allowed to work with everybody. And with Brexit and COVID, as I said earlier, the economic climate has changed, and it's impacting the way that we are helping businesses set up and function. So how we help businesses, we get lots of inquiries around a range of topics. The slide identifies some of those where people may contact us. It can be confusing, particularly for entrepreneurs and smaller businesses, to know where to go to reach out to get help. And that's why Growth Hubs provide a free support service to make that navigation into the ecosystem, so they can find that help and support they want. So what we ask businesses to do is, tell us about their challenges, what they're looking to do, so we can help them. And we appreciate it's not just a once, a one-off, that, they can come back to us at any point, as many times as they want to, for us to continue to help and support them to navigate that landscape and point them in the right direction. So we receive inquiries from people wanting to set up a business. Yes, the regulatory aspects with that, whether it be over licensing and food with local authorities, or with regard to regulatory aspects with HMRC. We get a lot of requests for mentoring support, for business planning, to help people understand if their idea is a viable proposition. We're working with lots of businesses in terms of accessing finance. That sounds really simple. It's not. It very much depends on the business, the background to that business, what they're looking to do, to give them the options on the table, really. And with that, whether we're looking at debt or equity, venture capital, grants, there's a range of products out there. We work with many partners to make sure that people who want to internationalise and trade have got the support in place in order to do that. So why we help businesses are varied. We try and track this as much as we can, and added to the list right down at the bottom, we've got Brexit on the slide there, which is a big part of the work that we have been doing. I think it would be fair to say with the pandemic, some of the emphasis has changed, but with less than 100 days now until we at the end of the EU transition, it's fast approaching and becoming a real priority again now. There's lots of examples there. I've been on a call today with a business which is already established in our area, looking for a new 15-acre site to develop for a new venture. It is so varied. What we say is, you know, talk to us. The next slide coming up here is just a visual one, really, and it's not got everybody on. It's just a sample of some of the organisations and programmes that we collaborate with to support our business community. What I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that we're well connected, that ecosystem's in place, and we're very well connected if there's government or European funding involved, and we are always strengthening our links with the private sector to ensure that we have the knowledge of support mechanisms which are available. You may have recognised some of the logos. The local authorities are obviously in there in terms of whether it be under regulatory or with regard to land requirements. But like I say, we're a developing team, and we're working across the spectrum of challenges and needs that businesses have. There's a couple on there which I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about, the Pledge and Accelerate, but it is wide ranging. And what we tend to find when we're working with businesses, it might not be at day one, it might be on the first call, and it might be, you know, 6 months down the line. When we're working with businesses, they don't just have one challenge, they have a number of challenges that we're trying to help them with. So our support mechanism there, it may be that we have a business working with a number of those organisations at the same time, or it might be a seamless link from one to another. Again, some visuals here, really. We produce case studies and materials. So if you want to find out more, you know, typically about what we're doing with businesses, so you can get a better understanding of where you think we can maybe add some value to conversations that you're having with businesses, we have case studies, and we're adding to them and updating them all the time. So there's a range of photos on here, and they're very varied. There's a few manufacturers there actually, but within there, these are real businesses which are or have been supported through a variety of programs. We've got a technology firm called IPEGS who have been supported by the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund to help with their investment needs. We've got CAD-Scan who were looking at expanding their product portfolio, 3D printed insoles, etc. for NHS patients. We can do that. We're well connected, being delivered in our area. We've got really valuable manufacturing support programs available, so we can make sure that they're being supported through those. Another one there is low life products, you know, VW vans where bespoke roofing systems go on them for manufacturing. Again, it is varied. Like I say, we are adding to it all the time. So if you want to find out more, our website at the end, and I've put details up there really, so you can have a look in your own time. So, like all organisations in all geographies, we've been impacted by COVID-19. The image that you can see there is Alderley Park. For those who don't know Alderley Park, it's in the Alderley Edge area of Cheshire East, and is a life science centre of expertise, and it's been used as an image to show how that's developing. I'll give you some more information in due course there. But as a LEP, like all businesses, we had to plan. We continue to plan for our short-term and long-term recovery, and actually to put the propositions in place with our strategies to help that recovery for all going forward, whether that be our business community, our residents, and the wider community. So, economic headlines. Yes, we've had COVID, and we're all too aware of it, and we are still working through it, and we will be for some time as we see the second wave upon us. I appreciate, depending on where you are, you may be locked down at this moment in time, and we await for further announcements from the Prime Minister this evening. So in Cheshire and Warrington, we've got circa 130,000 workers furloughed, and on the coronavirus retention scheme, we've got over 30,000 which have uptaken the self-employed income scheme as well. We've had a 73% increase in universal credit claimants. That's across all conditionalities. And we've seen significant impacts on our businesses, particularly our retail, hospitality and visitor economy. So I think, you know, it's fair to say, if you sat in any of the other presentations, I'm sure all of our organisations are saying the same in terms of the demands on the support which is available locally. So some green shoots here, again, some images. Over the last 6 months, we've actually seen some really good progress, should I say, with our key strategic projects, and some of those in our priority sectors. Life science, I already mentioned, Alderley Park. We've got the Cheshire and Warrington Science Corridor. Again, if you're interested, I can send you some information in due course. I'm happy to share my details with you about it. But in life sciences, probably one of the sectors, as we're aware, that's come out of the crisis most recently in quite a reasonable shape. And we've seen some significant investment secured in this area, as well as at Alderley Park. Logistics too, as a sector, we've seen some, sorry, move the slide on too quickly. Just trying to go back. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah, logistics too, we've had some green shoots, and with Innovate UK and our clean growth agenda, and hydrogen and nuclear are two areas that have secured significant funds to the tune of 25 million to progress detailed design work on schemes to unlock further money for investment in Cheshire and Warrington. I mentioned about accelerating the pledge earlier. The Accelerate programme, which has got some of the visuals up there, that's something which has been set up prior to COVID. During the COVID pandemic, we've managed to change some of the eligibility with it. It's open to all businesses of all sizes, but we've changed it in the way that SMEs can have 100% funding now, rather than just a to any skills and training needs that they've got. So it's really in the interest of any business within Cheshire and Warrington to make contact with us and find out how that programme can help, particularly while businesses are having to adjust and people within businesses may be having to pick up new skills. Then actually that funding programme of Accelerate Cheshire and Warrington can help businesses with that, and obviously help their operational costs to get people where they need to be. We've also, during the time of COVID, the Cheshire and Warrington LEP have made available £500,000 of funding to help with a recovery grant. We've had one for capital which opened and closed very quickly. There was a lot of demand on that, and we are still going through the applications and distributing the funds for that. And we have more recently gone live where it says Cheshire and Warrington Recovery Grant again at the bottom. This is a revenue grant. This time the funding for this has come to us from government sources basically. And again, there's 100% funds available for businesses which are looking at getting support with consultancy costs, strategy development to help their business become more resilient going forward, those that has been impacted. So there's lots happening. In terms of the LEP and the direct support, so operationally, the Growth Hub, we've achieved a high level of inquiries for support in this current financial year to date. In the 6 months, we virtually achieved what we would do it in a year. So there's a few graphs here. So the graph on the left is just giving you a visual on how we've done that. But what it's telling us, more importantly, that the substantial calls that we've been getting in have been around businesses wanting to be more resilient. It's around coronavirus, and they want access to grants basically to help them. But there are a number of inquiries coming in for different reasons with regard to the pledge, skills, Accelerate, starting up a business. Again, like I said before, it's very varied. So we're having a high volume into us, and we're doing a lot of signposting. We particularly are signposting to .gov and our local authority sites to make sure that businesses can either directly make contact and uptake on grants that have been available, or actually get the advice that they need as the regulations continue to change. So as I said earlier, we've repurposed and expanded some of our other provision, and that's working well. For example, Accelerate, which I've already mentioned, and our capital grant, and that'll be continuing to support with our revenue grant, which is currently at this moment in time. What you can see, sorry, just whilst I'm on, is the other graph in the middle there showing in terms of tourism and hospitality, that's demand on current the revenue grant. So businesses are looking for help and support to get their business through this pandemic and through these lockdowns, and then on to a new footing and in a profitable state. So COVID has given us a chance to revisit our future. I mentioned before our local industrial strategy. It was complete. We were ready to publish it just as COVID hit. And now it's going to undergo some changes to support the short-term recovery as well as the medium-term growth. So despite COVID, we believe that the fundamentals set out in our local industrial strategy are still appropriate and they still hold true, but we're reflecting on what our local area needs, and we are looking at objectives to make sure that they're right ones going forward. And we're doing this in a number of ways. The LEP just isn't working in isolation. We're working with our local authority partners to do this, to ensure that happens. And more recently, we've launched a new sustainable inclusive growth commission, and again, if you're interested, I can send you future details about that. So what we're doing to build a better future together, we've got different channels here: healthy, sustainable, inclusive, growing economy, and this is what we are focusing our future development and support on within the local enterprise partnership. And it's how we're looking from this vision to how we're going to hopefully be able to manage our success in the future. So in the short term, which is looking from now to the next 6 months, our objectives are to achieve a reduction in the peak levels of unemployment. As you heard me say earlier, you know, new claimants onto, or an increased claimants onto universal credit increased by 73%. We anticipate, with the government's mitigation measures changing, that we expected it to significantly increase. Obviously, there's been the winter economy plan launched, and we're trying to work out what that means for our local area. But our focus in the immediate future is to try and understand what's happening with unemployment and put the support mechanism in place to support those who are being made unemployed. And then over the medium term, we're looking at recovery in the marketplace, and we're looking at key projects in order to enable that recovery to happen. So there's just some detail on how we envisage we will do that in terms of the next 6 months. Now, we're already in those 6 months because this work started, although we're now going into that period of more localised lockdowns, and we're trying to understand what that means. With the plan for jobs and the kickstart, we had plans for that, but with lockdowns, how that is going to implicate on that, you know, we're waiting to see. So we've got a multi-agency workforce group which has been set up, and with the DWP, the local authorities, the LEP, health, other agencies in there to make sure that our plan going forward is appropriate. We're supporting young people to transition. We know in Cheshire and Warrington this year that more young people than ever have signed on and are going to college. There's been a real uptake this academic year. We're enhancing our business support offers, as you've heard us talk about, in terms of our proposition and help and support, and we're working out what more we can do to help people set up and start up businesses and then scale up businesses. So that work's ongoing. We've launched a programme of support for key sectors, recovery and preparation. We've held specific meetings with key sectors, and we're looking at short-term job creation. For the retail, hospitality and visitor economy, we hear in some ways retail with digital is increasing, and new opportunities, and they are green shoots there. But then you've got the visitor economy and hospitality, where we had the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, and now that's not happening and more restrictions. We're again trying to work out what's happening there really. So I think what I'm trying to say is a changing picture. We had a plan in place, we're adapting to that, and we're continuing to adapt with that, and what we're trying to do is help those which are really going to be facing redundancy, and understanding what those businesses have with challenges prior to that. And then we've got the EU transition period. And then just to sweep up really in terms of the medium term, so from 7 months onwards for another couple of years, supporting businesses, we want to continue to do that again around the EU transition period, other opportunities as well. Rolling out a place marketing strategy and an investment and trade strategy. That's what we're looking at doing. We want to encourage people and businesses to come to Cheshire and Warrington. It's a safe place to be, and we can encourage that growth. There's also work to be done to adapt to whatever new trading relationships we've settled on, as I mentioned there, in terms of that transition period, and the skills agenda too. There's been lots in the nationally this week, but in terms of skills and skills needs, in Cheshire and Warrington, we've got lots of provision already, but what we're looking at doing is being flexible with some of that provision and making sure with our partners that the right support's in place for people when they need it. Finally, just contact details really. The Growth Hub, you can find us, I hope, quite easily. We're going through a stage of, we're going to have a new website in a few months. But you know, we've got one up there, and it's absolutely working, and there's a lot of information and resources in there. You can contact any of us. I'm trying to get into a case of putting our a general support email up there, but you can contact us at any time, and me in particular wouldn't be a problem. The support is more that, you know, with people having to take time off or illness, then actually there's a consistent contact where we know messages are going to get picked up, and the like. So that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Kerry. That's
it's okay.
We have a number of questions on the chat for you, but I do notice that obviously the timing, we have kind of the session ends in about a minute, so yeah. Just so that obviously if anybody needs to go, that's fine, but can I just ask anybody in particular who's got a question? I'll read some off the chat. Any other guess? Okay, if you put your hands up if you've got a question, otherwise I'll start reading some of the chat. We've got some about, we just want to know which programs you've worked with regulators on. You mentioned the Pledge and Accelerator program, and where do you see regulators supporting your businesses? So maybe what programs you worked on, but where do you see them working in the future? Regulators from you.
Okay, I mean, personally, I've worked on lots of different programs myself, in terms of regulatory and how we fit together really. I think there's this in terms of a business community, sometimes there's, and it depends on what business, you know, if you've got a startup business and regulatory aspects, it's scary, etc. I think for other businesses, you know, we do a lot of sector work with chemicals and nuclear, then regulators somewhat set up, those companies are somewhat set up to deal with that. So in terms of programs, I've worked across a range of programs, and I can take this offline, and, you know, happy to speak. So absolutely fine with that. And I think going forward, we need to be more seamless. Regulatory aspects, it's not scary. It's just about getting key messages out there, really. And I think maybe, you know, going forward, you know, having simple messages and how we all work together. I'm always keen to do that with any of the programs that we work with. For some, it works better than others, and I think maybe that's something for the future that we can, you know, try and develop more.
I think simple messages is actually businesses just want to understand, and so I'm just going to have a look at a couple of other things on the chat. I can bring those up. Share more information about the retail hospitality sector and the visitor action plan. I don't know if that's something you can share with us.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. I'll speak to my colleagues in Marketing Cheshire. At the moment, there's surveys being done every 2 weeks. What you're trying to measure, what's happening in Cheshire and Warrington. That's being done throughout a lot of the areas, definitely throughout the northwest, because I've seen it. So actually looking at those challenges that those businesses are having and the plans. So I can absolutely happy to introduce you to some of my colleagues who are working more direct on that. There's another one that Accelerate. It's not regulatory, it's skills orientated, but I'd be happy to have a chat about that as well. So I can pick through these if you like and try and respond to them. Niall said about the scope of work, it is wide reaching. I would say I'm a generalist. My background many years ago from regeneration is as a surveyor, basically, and then I went into regeneration. So it is wide ranging. So within any team that you will have within a growth hub, you will have more generalists. You can oversee the bigger picture of what businesses might need, and then you'll have those specialists within the team who are just on one area. So if it's skills, it might just be skills. So it's important for those more generalists to make sure that that journey of support is following and flowing at the right time for the businesses, rather than just to a specialist who may just go, well, this is the only bit I'm dealing with them.
That's brilliant. I'm just going to look at the chat. Now we've got chat. We've got a few people going to leave, but I think what I'd like to do is to say thank you very much, and actually to mention that actually your growth hub is very different in the fact that you have 100% free service, because you don't have any ERDF funding, so that's European funding. And that, for those who don't know, so the European funding would restrict who you could offer that funding to. So it might be only like larger businesses greater than 250 employees, or it might be non-startup businesses or something specific. But obviously your growth hubs helps and gives access to free advice to all businesses, which is fantastic. So yeah. I'm impressed. We'd certainly like to take some of these conversations offline if we can with you. That'd be great. And I'm sure my colleague and I, Jackie, will be in touch if that's all right. So
absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to check, has anybody else got on the chat? Just lots of thank yous. Support with Adele and the mentoring for growth programs across Warrington. Perhaps you can tell us a bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so Be the Business. So Mentoring for Growth is a program that my colleagues in the growth company deliver. So Adele is the lady who sort of manages that project, and we class her as one of our teams. She actually has a pass to our building. She can come in. So, there's the direct team within our growth hub, but there's our expanded family. So some of Adele's one of those for the Mentoring for Growth program, but also the manufacturing programs which come out of the growth hub as well. They're very much part of our team as well, but are based within the growth company and employed by the growth company. So we're pulling on expertise from everywhere, as I said. So Adele works on a program, Mentoring for Growth, which was slightly repurposed at the crunch time of the pandemic, but is set up to help growing and developing businesses which have aspirational for growth. So they're employing circa 10 people, a couple of £1 million turnover, and they want some mentoring support basically. So Adele's done a wonderful job. So I suppose the job of the generalist within the Growth Hub team here will identify that there's a business need, and then we'll ask Adele to try and match the business with the challenges with a mentor, and that's what happens. And there's lots of good news, and we're trying to get some case study material out on that at the moment. So yeah, works fantastically well.
That's great. No, we look forward to seeing those case studies. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we are over time, so I think we're going to hang on to you any longer. But thank you very much for your time, Kerry. And as I say, I think myself and my colleague Jackie Fitzsimmons will be in touch to find out a little bit more about how we can work with you. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for attending, and have a nice afternoon. Thank you very much, Kerry.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.